Welcome to Forward Steps Vlogs.
കേരള പബ്ലിക് സർവീസ് കമ്മീഷൻ നടത്തുന്ന കേരള സർവീസ് റൂൾ പരീക്ഷയുടെ മുൻകാല ചോദ്യങ്ങളും അവയുടെ ഉത്തരങ്ങളും വളരെ എളുപ്പത്തിൽ മനസ്സിലാകുന്ന വിധത്തിലാണ് പരീക്ഷയുടെ ചോദ്യങ്ങളും അവയ്ക്കുള്ള ഉത്തരങ്ങളും ക്രമീകരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇതുവഴി ആദ്യ ശ്രമത്തിൽ തന്നെ KSR പരീക്ഷ വിജയിക്കാൻ കഴിയട്ടെ എന്ന് ആശംസിക്കുന്നു. ഈ ചാനൽ സബ്സ്ക്രൈബ് ചെയ്യുകയും നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷൻ ലഭിക്കുന്നതിന് ബെൽ ഐക്കൺ എനേബിൾ ചെയ്യുക.
The leave which is not treated as absence from duty is the authority whose permission is required by a head of department for accepting remuneration for giving talk over All India Radio is an officer is granted hospital leave for 200 days. The leave salary admissible after 120 days is District Collector holding the charge of the post of Revenue Divisional Officer under him is For the drawal of full amount of permanent travelling allowance, an officer should be on tour outside 8 kilometers from headquarters for at least -days in a month. When a Grade 1 officer travels more than 200 kilometers a day by a special conveyance, the rate of mileage allowance admissible for the excess over 200 kilometers will be An officer while on tour had enforced halt for 5 days due to blockade of road on account of floods. The daily allowance, DA, admissible to the officer for the enforced halt is Temporary transfer means a transfer to duty in another station which is expressed to be for a period not exceeding the maximum number of times an officer is entitled to draw travelling allowance for the journey to and from the place at which he appears for any particular obligatory departmental examination is While on tour, the halting place shall be regarded as the officer's temporary headquarters after a continuous halt of -duration. The additional daily allowance entitled to an officer when traveling in Class 1 helitracks is dash of the ordinate rate. An officer has to cross an arm of a sea by steamer during a rail journey, and the fare of this is included in the rail fare. The travel is treated as the grade of a lower division clerk accompanying the minister on tour is considered as dash for the purpose of calculation of traveling allowance. An officer on tour is provided with free lodging. The daily allowance entitlement of the officer is a last grade officer deputed for treasury transactions from a particular office will be paid an allowance for the traveling allowance of officers for journey on temporary transfers and relieving duties will be limited to the allowance that would have been admissible for journey on tour if the duration of the temporary transfer is not exceeding non-officials serving in first-class committees will be allowed traveling allowance at the rates admissible to An officer is deputed for training at Bombay for 45 days. The officer is eligible for daily allowance at when two journeys are performed in two ways. The period of absence will be treated as 1 day for calculation of daily allowance if the journeys are performed within the traveling allowance advance allowed to an officer on retirement to enable him to proceed to the place of settlement after retirement is restricted to when an officer dies while in service. Members of his family will be granted traveling allowance if the journey is performed within months of the date of death of the government employee. The wife and son aged 5 years living with a government servant transferred from a station traveled to the new station before the date of his transfer. They may be treated as accompanying the employee if their travel is within. An officer of government traveling on university business will receive traveling allowance direct from If an officer of a vacation department combine tour with vacation, he shall be granted tour traveling allowance for the rate of daily allowance admissible to a Grade 2A officer for his tour outside the state in April 2020 is